This video is going to be a little bit different than my usual guides, but this construction update has pulled me into its depths and I have absolutely fallen down the rabbit hole. And so today what I'll be doing is over explaining every single possible idea I've had when designing my player owned house. Before we get into this video, I just want to give a quick notice to y'all that the Golden Gnomes nomination process is going on right now. There will be a link in the description and the pinned comment below. If you think my channel is worthy of something like Best YouTuber, feel free to give me a vote, but if not, I totally understand. My channel is quite old at this point in terms of YouTube time, so I'm not exactly eligible for Best New YouTuber at this point. There's also, I think, in the RS3 category, like the best video guide or something like that. If there was a video you thought recently that really helped you out, then feel free to put it in there as a nomination. But again, if you don't want to, or if you think someone else is deserving of that category, feel free to put it in there. But I did want to bring it to y'all's attention. Now, the reason I wanted to do this video is recently, at least at time of recording, it was 2 days ago, or maybe a day and a half ago, I went on the RuneScape stream with a bunch of other creators, and I had a little house tour with, I think there was a couple J mods, there was a couple of other creators that were hosting, and then a bunch of other creators and some from the RuneScape art community decided to show up and show off their houses, and there was a lot of cool ones. Mine was in there, and when I went on and explained my house, I tried keeping it to like big picture design ideas because in the stream they were starting to run into time issues and said, let's just try and speed run through these last few. So I kept it to big picture design ideas and kind of just let people run around and discover things for themselves, but I didn't get any time to really dive into the detail of my house and some of the design choices and little tips and tricks I have for hiding some unsightly features. And so that's what we're going to do here. And I think there's no better place to start out than the actual floor plan. So the floor plan I have here, if I use my freedom cam to zoom out, if I turn on build mode here, I can then go to room shapes and get the names here. In the center is a large square, and then I have two T little junctions or T-shaped rooms off to the sides. In the middle here I have a cross, some standard hallways, a couple long hallways to lead to some octagons that are kind of like some outpost towers, and then in order to fill in the rest, it's another long hallway that attaches to the back of the large square, and then just some standard square rooms. I'll get into why I used square rooms here when we get over to that part of the house. And what I was going for when I did this floor plan is originally I wanted the front entrance of the house to kind of look like some still images I had just living rent-free in my brain of some Victorian castles. There's a video I watched a few years ago of a guy, he's an Australian guy, I'm trying to remember his channel name, it's a large channel, but he was talking about castle design more from a practical perspective, but nonetheless castle design from like the early medieval period all the way up to like the Victorian era and beyond. But I remember some of the more large, like gigantic square castles in his video. I'll bring an example up here on stream, but as you can see in the center, there's kind of a bit that pokes out for the actual center bit. In this image, it's just an actual rectangle, and then flanking out from either side are the other parts of the house to create up the entire like front entrance shape here. And here in game I tried to recreate that by using that little cross room with the hallways connected in, because as you can see here, the wall will actually go in and then out, so that way you can tell where the actual front entrance is, and it's all symmetrical, which I very much like symmetrical things. I don't really do well with asymmetric builds, and so I just completely ignore it and I just keep it to symmetrical things. And then what I did is kind of have how the Camelot Castle, I'll bring an image up here of Camelot Castle. It has these two kind of outpost towers as like little guard towers, so to speak. Now, in a player-owned house, I'm not actually going to be guarding anything, so it's just more of a for fun design thing to have the guard towers here. But that's what I did, is design this in a way so it's all symmetrical, so that way I can find the center point of where all of these things converge, and then I can just plant a 2x2 item in the center. And this is the struggle I've been having on this entire update, is everything is on a 2-tile center, and anytime I've done a base builder, a city builder, or if I've played a bunch of Minecraft, I always build off of a 1-block center. And so having to adjust to 2-tile or 2-block center really messed with me. What I mean by that is, as you can see, if I go back and forth in this doorway here, there is one tile here that you can stand on, and then there is another tile here that you can stand on, and then the center point is in between the 2 tiles rather than the center point being in the middle of an actual tile. However, everything else seems to be built around 2 tiles, or most items do. There's a bit more decoration on the inside that I had to fiddle with to get to look right, but I just have a posh fountain here, and then I used these round cobblestone roads in order to surround it with the, I believe it's a quarter circle is what they're called. If I go into garden here and look for it, I'm sure I can find the name. Okay, they're all literally called light cobblestone path, but the one I used here was just this like quarter circle here, and then I just did it in all of the locations to make a circle. And then this here is the path tile I used. It is this one that's right next to the flower bed trim. And then once I got the center figured out and the pathing figured out, it was just a matter of how do I divide this up to make it look decent. And what I started with is the walls were looking pretty barren, and so I just started messing with these tall box hedges and some of the other types of hedges, putting these tall fancy ones in the corner to kind of break up the shape so it's just not a hedge going all the way. I think it looks pretty cool to also have these flower planters. I don't remember if these are the ones that require the furniture plan or not. I think you can build these right away. Actually, now that I think about it, I think these require a stone planter plan in order to make stone planters, and then you combine that with a bagged flower, I believe, in order to make these. By the time this video comes out, every single furniture plan is known in order to where to get it, so feel free to look at it on the wiki. And lining things up with little details like this, like when I look at a wall like this, I see obviously just a flat wall, but I notice that there's a window here, there's a window here, and I'll think in terms of how do I fill out the space here and then break it up for in front of the window. Now you could go completely different with this. You could even do, I believe there's a 3 wide tall box hedge if I can find it. So there's a 2 wide here, and then I believe this is a 4. Yeah, that is a 4 tile, so it's all even tiles. You could maybe do some individual ones and then do like a flower planter here, but just making sure that everything kind of has a nice spacing to it. Like this one happens to fit between the 2 windows, so that's why I put it there. And I personally am a fan of throwing statues in corners in order to have just something different there, because if it's all bushes, it's going to look very monotone. It's not really eye-pleasing, so to speak. You want items in different locations in order to break up the flow enough and let your eyes actually be able to absorb everything that's going on, rather than just seeing a wall of gray with some windows and then a couple of green lines of shrubs. Now, the elephant in the room here, yes, I have all 4 of the sandcastles. I just thought it was really cool that we got these sandcastles from the Lumbridge event. I always thought they were really neat when we did them way back in the day, back when I used to do the Lumbridge crater events. And so I have them here for now. I'll probably end up replacing them later on with like maybe a spirit tree, a teleporter, probably like a fairy ring or something like that, and then whatever else I can think of. If they had any large statues or fountains like that, I could even just do more fountains in these areas, although it wouldn't quite work because 1 tile entrance, but it would be centered because I think the math all works out. Anyways, I digress. talking about statues though, I also like having statues in front of entrances. Now, I didn't want to go crazy with the statues. We only have 3 of them right now. We have this angel one, we have the small one there, so it's medium, small, and then the large statue. I don't believe I have any large statues. I might have one up in my second floor, but we'll get to that later. But again, it just adds some visual depth to this wall face because there's already some decent decor on the wall itself, these vertical lines and kind of how the door frame works, but adding something in that matches roughly with color and gives it a little bit more detail and shape is something I find visually pleasing. Now, a front garden wouldn't be a front garden if we didn't have more than just some bushes and flowers growing in it, so I just took the highest level tree that we have, which is the magic tree. I would have done 4 spirit trees if we were allowed to place more than one, but sadly I can't have just 4 gigantic spirit trees here and everything else is too small, and I just rotated them on 45 degrees so that way when I look up it's pretty much the same shape going all the way around and it makes sense. Another way to line it up is you can see like this little part of the branch, how it has like kind of this almost like club foot shape, and it'll be in between the piles of cash all the way around. That's like kind of a way to help line up these trees because these things can be quite a pain in the butt to get lined up properly. And the actual elephant in the room, yes, these are all huge gold piles. Originally I was going to have fences running at 45-degree angles, or maybe even just a simple tall box hedge running at a 45, but those items we can't place at 45 degrees. And so seeing a problem there, I decided to fill it in the most insane way possible. And yes, I just threw huge gold piles in my front garden just for fun. I don't really flex a whole lot in game with like quick chatting a bunch of stuff or running around quick chatting my wealth evaluator or anything crazy like that. I think that's a little bit too showboaty. It's a little bit classless. I try to be a relatively humble person in general, and so in my own personal home, I'll definitely just throw a bunch of these around just for fun, and then throw some dyes on my gear that I like, these types of things, to where if you know what you're looking for or you know what items are, you can tell what I have. But anyways, I've gone off topic again. Let's get back to the design stuff. Now, I have these picket fences here, and the only reason I have these ones instead of the white picket fences is we currently don't have different lengths available for the white picket fence, so this would eat up a lot of furniture space here in this garden, and since furniture is limited to 300 individual items, this limit is very easy to fill. I've had to run around and optimize my house quite a few times in order to fit things in, but I think in this type of garden scenario, some picket fences look a lot better than like the dark or the light cobblestone walls that we have, or just stone walls as they're called. But even the light stone walls, like we don't have all of the lengths available like we do with the dark stone. Hopefully that gets added so we can have the light stone. Hopefully the other lengths of the white picket fence get added, as well as maybe some type of marble wall. That would be really cool, that uses marble blocks but it has a much more polished and clean look to it. But I think I've spent long enough on this garden. Let's actually get into the house. So if we go into the front entrance here, or the main entrance of the house, this would be like your foyer, so to speak, where you come in, you can set some items down or whatever, and then enter the rest of the house. It also acts as an area for you to kind of like dust off your feet, so that way you're not tracking a bunch of crap all out through the rest of the house. This is more of like, you know, real life stuff. This isn't going to have any effect on scape, so all I did here is just put in some capes here around the portal. It's just the 4 inverteds that I have, and then 2 master max capes. Hopefully we can customize these to match the cape colors, or maybe I can customize them to match into the walls a bit more. But the reason I have these mahogany kitchen cabinets here is, well, cabinets are nice for holding items for when you're entering a house, but the important thing here is they are hiding poke through of other items. Like if I just move this out of the way, as you can see, there are some box hedges clipping through this wall. So I like to use items like this to kind of block any clipping that is happening. And also they look relatively decent. The mahogany matches the floor and kind of this area as well. And also the teak ones and below have like crooked doors and weird lines on them. They look like kind of cheap and tossed together like you would get at a Home Depot or like an IKEA set that someone built terribly. So I just threw these down. Also, I like having my house portal here inside of the foyer because, you know, again, when you teleport to the house, this is where you're going to end up. This is the like starting point of a house, so to speak. And to keep this house functional, I have my arcane potion cauldron here. So yes, the entire house is completely done for random aesthetic reasons that I have in my brain, but I did have to keep it practical by having my arcane potion close enough to my portal so that way I can get my hour overload and run off for PVM. And I just threw a decorative rug under the portal to kind of help break up the color so that way it's just not monotone flooring everywhere. Rugs are very nice for adding in good visual breakup to things, so it's not just like barren monotone rooms. People do this all the time in real life and it works in Scape. Now, most of you have probably noticed there is actually a garden here on the inside of the house. And well, what I originally did for this floor plan is I wanted some type of air gap to help break up the overall giant square that this house became, at least in the floor plan. I like air gaps and I like interior gardens. I don't mind large courtyards, but a large courtyard just isn't going to work in this type of a floor plan. And if I go ahead and turn off remove roofs, I put it on none, as you can see, it actually works out pretty nicely because you have like the main house and then you have like supporting buildings and whatnot. So it is a nice air gap. So that way, if say we ever get doors and then, you know, you want to keep your front doors closed, you want to keep the guard towers closed, but you still want to go outside in the morning, then you have a nice area to come in here and sit. By the way, the teak benches here, yes, I could put a higher level bench here, but this is the highest tier bench or the highest level bench that looks like it would actually belong outside. Everything above this has some like cushion on it that would look really comfortable, but it would get really nasty really quickly, especially sitting next to a water feature. Like a treated teak plank should do pretty well in a outdoor environment if you put the right coatings on it. And again, this doesn't make any sense in the context of RuneScape. This is just, again, me over explaining every single thought process I had when putting these rooms together. And so that is why you see teak benches here, and you can also see them out here in little setting areas. I like to have benches around in usable seating in houses so you can just kind of sit down and enjoy the area that you've built. But if I came out to a little garden like this every morning to drink my morning coffee and just kind of get ready for the day mentally, I think I would have died and gone to heaven because I probably will never own something like this. But I can have it in RuneScape and pretend. And then for the rest of the things, inside of small gardens like this, I definitely like flowing water. I am a Florida man after all. I live on a peninsula and there are canals and lakes and rivers and entire oceans and gulfs all around me all the time, so water is very normal for me. I'm definitely not a landlubber type. And also these fountains just add a lot of visual depth and centerpieces for you to focus on, so it's not just a sea of green. And what I like about this small fountain and throwing it into the corner is, for some reason, seeing a fountain like this with some windows on a stone wall, it reminds me of if y'all had seen the Fate Keeper release. For some reason, this type of aesthetic here of like a small area that's a walkway, it reminds me of that kind of design style. Now obviously this is functioning and getting used. Fate Keeper's art style is like decrepit, worn down ancient relics, but I like to think in my head canon this is what some of those areas would look like before they had hundreds of years of decay happen to them. Now this area over here, I'm in this garden, I'm not 100% happy with, but it fits for now. It's a 2 tile wide and it's very long, so I just have the shrub there, and then I threw a terracotta oak leaf pot in the corner just to help with stuff, but I'm mostly ignoring it until we get a furniture limit increase. A lot of stuff is hinging on furniture limit increases, but I think I've yapped on long enough about these little gardens. Let's go ahead and get the roofs back removed, and we can show off a couple more points here. We're going through these hallways where if there is a little bit of poke through, like I believe these fountains do you have? Some poking through. Yeah, like right there they do. So I try to use bookcases or other things in order to block that. Now it is on this side, but again, I'm on furniture limit, so there's not a whole lot I can do. As well as over here with these two bookshelves. Now, yes, I have seen people just absolutely react and say you shouldn't have a bookshelf shoved into a corner like this. It looks hideous, but I think it does look pretty interesting, as in you just shoved a couple of triangle planks into a corner with like some type of thin frame for it to attach into as a decorative piece. I think it looks interesting, although a bit janky, but in order to help out, I think it is a lesser of two evils, because if I just shove it in the corner like this, that looks significantly more terrible, because it looks like a glitched bookcase to me, because like frame pieces are jutting out. There's other frame pieces here going in through it, and no one's going to be custom making a bookcase to go around a frame piece like that. It's just not happening. If I go the other way, it doesn't fully block out all of the clipping, and again, you run into the same problem. So my suggestion here is just go full send into the glitched look, because if it's so insane looking, like this looks more believable at a 45 than it does on either of the 90s. So I'm just going to keep it like that. I know some people don't like it, but it is what it is. Now the other garden over there is a carbon copy. This one here is a smaller version of the same thing. This is probably the one I would set in a bit more often. And originally these did have more shrubs here, but for furniture limit reasons, I have pulled those out, and I just have the two statues with the single small box hedge. Also, I use these small box hedges here on these interior ones because they allow you to see the window sill here, or the window ledge, a little bit easier than the tall fancy box hedge, or the tall box hedge, whatever they're called. And then back here in the corner of the house, it's just like kind of my normal stuff for like actual house use, of like the bathysphere, the diving suit, and then the prawn broker for all of the I think it's like the deep sea stuff or whatever. I forget the name for this. And then for this room, it's just a connecting room. Now the reason I did these three as individual squares rather than a corner shape is, first off, I couldn't place the corner shape, even though it would line up. Maybe it's been fixed, but when I tried building this, like it looks like it would work fine, but maybe it technically doesn't. But anytime I tried doing this, it just wouldn't work. And also the problem with corner rooms is that I don't believe I would have any access to this room, because if we look here on the outside corner, there is a wall that you can adjust, but there is no inside corner wall, so I could never get into my garden here. And so I kind of just bit the bullet, used 3 squares, and called it good. Now this end hallway is kind of a shoe-in for an altar room, because if I shove the entire house forward more, the fences and all of the garden stuff would collide in the box that way. And then this is literally on the border. Like I don't know why I couldn't place a hallway 1 square this way, but I couldn't. In the large hallway, the larger hallways wouldn't fit, and I was also running into room count issues. So I ended up just compromising and making this thin, long hallway kind of like just my little altar room. I have the Ceradonite altar here because in my opinion, of all the altars, it looks the best and it fits the best here. Like all of the other altars, they could have done really cool stuff with them, but they are all just kind of a letdown, other than like the Ceradonite altar, because this looks like the continuation of what the gilded altar was, and being its 120 construction, I thought, okay, it looks the best. It's also physically the largest, so if you're gonna have an altar and you're gonna be devoted to one of the gods in this game, you should probably go all out and get the biggest one. But like this Zeros altar is really wimpy looking. The Zamorak altar, well, I'm not gonna have demons in my household. I've seen too many haunted house things. I'm not letting demons back in here. The Saren altar is also like relatively small looking. It's not the greatest. The Guthix altar doesn't even look like it should belong inside. I understand why it's designed this way, but this is for like if you have a log cabin in 200 trees on your build plot, this is the altar you want. The Bandos altar, if you look closely, it literally has stench coming off of it. This altar reeks. I can only imagine not just this Bandos altar, but how all of the rest of like the Goblin and Bandos areas smell. So yeah, there will be nothing of Bandos in this household. And then the Armado one, again, it's too small, it's too weak, it doesn't have presence to it. And the particle effects on it are also pretty weak. And as you can see, like I said before, it looks like the Saradomin altar is like the continuation of the Gilded altar. The Gilded altar being like the only reason that anyone ever visited houses before this update. And now we have the actual continuation of it. Like you can see the book there in the center. There's a book in the center here. 2 candles on the Gilded. There's 2 candles on the Saradomin. The Saradomin one is larger and has pillars and more visual design to it. It is the best looking altar for this current color palette that we have for interior and floor designs. And I will accept no other arguments for any other altar. They're all insignificant or dumb. All right, now that I got a bunch of people riled up in the comments, let's move on over to this corner, which is my workshop area. I have some cool workshop items here. I have the repair stand. I believe this is the highest clockmaker's bench. If I just go ahead and search bench here just to make sure. Yeah, if I look here, clockmaker's 4 is the highest it goes, and then there's nothing else really. There is a reinforced steel framed, but that's what I have here. And I don't quite remember what these are all used for. I also have my telescope in here just because I think it kind of fits design wise. I don't even remember what this crystal of power does, but it looks cool and it looks like it fits with the rest of the stuff visually. I have a banner making stand here and then the tool storage over here. It might make more sense if I do the telescope in this room now that I'm looking at it and have tool storage next to the workbenches, but the workbenches already have their own tools, so who knows. As well as this tool storage, like a rake, a shovel, and a watering can. I don't see myself using those in a workshop anytime soon unless things are getting really dire, but I digress. And moving on these hallways, nothing too fancy, just some rugs. I'm also trying to use different rugs here. Like I have the large red here, I have the large snake pattern, and then the decorative yellow. It's just to give some visual identity to each room so that way it just doesn't look like a carbon copy, monochromatic or monotone mess. And you can actually identify quickly the different parts of the rooms or the different rooms entirely. Now each of these outposts are a carbon copy of each other. They're completely mirrored, but I just threw in a couple of armor sets. I wish we had better ones. Like I wish we could do all the way up to primal or even do a custom armor stand with like something allowing me to throw on like old dye sets I have, or do dyed armor sets as like a type of flex with like a weapon on it. So like a helmet, a chest, and a legs maybe with a two-handed or even a dual-wield set on them. That would be quite cool having those, but we have the rune. This is the highest level we got so far. Obviously you got to have a giant chest to store stuff in a kind of outpost area for like extra supplies and whatnot, some maps and whatnot to know the terrain of where you're at, and a notice board for updates and whatnot. And then one of the new items here, which I do think look pretty cool, is the Gilded Eternal stuff. This one happens to be an armor case, and nothing's in here because I think most of the stuff that I have is like in Diango or it's in my bank, or I honestly don't remember where it is at this point. I don't know why you would store your Globetrotter in here if you do clues, because you would want that in your bank for a preset unless presets are able to pull from storage, and I just never knew that, but someone will let me know in the comments. And this room could use a bit more decoration, as well as the hallways themselves. I've kind of left these barren, again waiting for furniture limit updates. But now we will go into the main living quarters, the main area of the house. I've kind of just been going around the surface, but now we're here in the meat and potatoes. And since I'm a large man who enjoys my food, we will go ahead and start with the kitchen. Of course, no kitchen or house is complete without a golden sink. You just have to have one. For some of you it might be expensive, others not so much. Just have one in your kitchen. And for this kitchen design, I went went with more of a modern style open L-shaped kitchen. I really like open kitchen designs, and I definitely do like L-shaped kitchens. In actual houses, they seem a little bit harder to fit in rather than a just single wall kitchen, or in smaller houses like I've grown up in, galley style kitchens are very popular because they're pretty space efficient. But being able to just walk along a small path like this and have access to all of your counter space, anything inside your larder. By the way, I am hyper upset that we don't have any of the higher tier kitchen cabinets with the like cool stuff on them, like the one with here with like a bunch of jars on it. There's one here with like a chopping board and a knife block. There's one here with like a bunch of pots and pans for like washing and whatnot. This would go well next to a sink, and one with some pots on it. Like, we don't have any of these options for like oak, teak, or mahogany, and it kind of annoys me. Also, it really annoys me that I have to have a teak larder here because there is no higher tier one. Like the wooden larder, that looks like I got it at Goodwill, at least in comparison to like the mahogany. Like, if I'm gonna go out and have a mahogany and marble or even possibly diorite countertop setup, I'm not gonna have something that looked like I built it in the spare afternoon with a 6-pack of Miller High Life sitting in my kitchen. The oak one design wise isn't too bad, but the color is completely off. And even this teak one, it's just like, it maybe would have taken an extra, I don't know. Okay, I'm speaking a little bit out of my element here. Maybe they actually wanted to put the time in to make an actual mahogany larder that fit the rest of the kitchen and looked like it was worth the upgrade rather than just a reskin, because I probably would have complained about a reskin, I'll be honest here. But having a teak one here that doesn't match the rest of my cabinets and having shelves that don't quite match the cabinets, that does bother me, but it is what it is. I know the JMods and other developers want to add in a bunch of stuff here and just fill out all of the like weird use cases or feel like all of the furniture types and whatnot, but for now it is what it is. And for those wondering how I did this island counter setup, a standard one just didn't look right, and you can't get these cabinets to stick to each other and make just one large rectangle. So what I did is, even though it looks kind of glitchy, I think it's fine, I took these corner cabinets here and then just kind of rotated them around, and there is a hole in the center, but my head canon for this is that is a trash receptacle, and because we're characters in RuneScape who have access to magic, we just cast telekinetic grab on whatever is in the trash receptacle and teleport it to some dimension who can take care of it. All right, I yapped long enough about kitchen designs, but it's over explained, so just deal with it. Let's go ahead and talk now about this dining room. They got rid of my giant dining room tables, and I'm really sad. I really enjoyed the just like insane sized dining room tables that were the size of these rugs here and had literal benches on them. Like, that was peak. That was peak design. And then the only thing that works here and stays centered on the rug is the round tables, and the only way to get these armchairs to line up with the table in a symmetrical way is on the 45s, which makes them completely impossible to sit on. When more updates come out, I am going to revisit and completely redo this entire dining room. Hopefully we get the ability to scale up the other tables to their former glory and size, and I don't want to stare at that anymore. So now we are going to come over here to the family room slash den area, and I tried to make this a little bit sectioned off because this entire thing, like, this is an open plan, this is an open plan, and I wanted 2 of the 4 rooms to be more closed off, so to speak. And the way I did it here for this family room is it's still like a more common sitting area. It's not a private area inside of a home. And so what I did is just shoved a fireplace in the corner, added in a bookshelf for some visualization, and if you want to grab a book and read here, you could. The bearskin rug can't be placed on a 45-degree angle, and just like half of the other things that I've noticed. It bothers me. I would really like the head to be facing away from the fire towards the trophy. But the way I kind of closed this off is I have these screens here. Now, if you actually zoom in and look on this side of the screen, you can see out very easily. These are directional because if I turn them around, it's a lot harder to see in. These screens in game are directional, so keep that in mind when you are placing these. And the reason I did it here is obviously the bedroom has its own walls, so sound and stuff and looks aren't going to be coming from this direction. It's only from like the dining room where people are going to be, you know, eating and drinking and making a bunch of sound and whatnot, having their conversations. The kitchen's kind of blocked off by the stairwell, so I don't really need one, and I can't place these on 45 degrees. If there was one thing to come from this update as a patch, it would just be let us place everything on 45-degree angles. But that way you're here, it's still a relatively inviting place, but it has kind of more of a closed off and more interpersonal feel. It's like you'd want to share this place with maybe one or two other people, but it's also nice to sit by yourself. As well as I have my Catalyst Dragon trophy here. It just looks nice. It's the best place I think for it because it's not going to go up in the upstairs flex room. I think little trophies like this are best suited in kind of like this type of area, but that's just me. And moving on to the last area here before we go up to the second floor is the bedroom. And we don't have interior walls, so I just improv'd interior walls with a bunch of bookcases and then used these screens here to make it such that you really have to try and look into the bedroom. And then on the bed, if you're looking in between the gap, you can't really, you only see like what's ever exposed here. And in my head canon, like this bed has closable curtains, and usually this type of bed also had closable curtains that went in the front. I could rotate the bed around, but it is what it is. But it's actually kind of a nice little place in here. Now, the funny thing is you can kind of just walk through these because they're technically transparent. It's kind of weird. But what I did to solve the issue with the bed is I did put it up against this wall, but then I left it one block out because trying to get this bed to center up to anything, especially if you're trying to maximize the space between the door frame and the wall, it's impossible to get this bed to line up any other way. So what I did is place it up against one wall, take it out a block like this, and then use some Eternal bookcases here facing backwards, and they line up almost perfectly with the bed in order to make it look like it's in a corner, but in reality it's not. But you know, it is what it is. I'd rather have this little hidden gap here than have a bed looking like it's phasing into another dimension or sitting out in no man's land. And then I just threw in some more bedroom stuff like the magic wardrobe, some gilded drawers which phase into the window, but I can't really do anything about that. I have my gilded clock here, a nice little desk for a gaming setup, but we can't throw gaming stuff on there. And then a rug here, which let's see, does it look better if I do this? Okay, I actually think the rug does look a bit better there, although it's under the bookcases, which I don't like. I actually think I like that the best because if you're standing in front of your wardrobe, you're presumably not going to have socks or shoes on, so you'd want something to stand on that isn't cold wood flooring. Here in Florida, I do it all the time, but Florida is known for being hotter than the surface of the sun, so it's fine for me. But in a medieval period like RuneScape, yeah, I like this rug setup better. I'll probably find one I like even more. I don't like how it clips there. All right, that is all of the main house. I don't have anything external. Again, waiting for furniture limit increases and possibly even some room increases to do some cool stuff like that. Let's move on to the second floor. All right, here we are on the second floor. Now this one will go quite a bit quicker because this is just my flex floor and trophy floor. That's all this is going to be. Now the two thrones here, this is just kind of standard. If I'm gonna have thrones and be the king of my own castle, middle, my throne room is going to be on the second floor with all of my war trophies. This just makes sense to me, and I think it makes sense to y'all as well. Now, the way I have these trophies planned out is that is God Wars 1 over there, which I do have all of them, which is kind of cool. I have Grodor, I have Krill, I have Zilly, I have Kriara, and I have Nex's wings. And the reason there are bookshelves like this in the corner, which all I did for this is I have the two bookshelves, and then for the corner, I just rotated it until it matched in like that, because it looks really dumb if it's facing the other way. But the reason I did that is in these two corners, I had to, because the roof actually clips into the room and looks really dumb. So once again, I used some bookshelves to give a little bit of visual fidelity and to block out a lot of clipping. These are like the little details that I try and work on a lot, is to hide clipping items where I can, or find something that looks slightly better. But anyways, back to the trophies. I have my God Wars 1, I have my God Wars 2 section, I have the God Wars 3 or Elder God Wars section, and then it kind of just gets random after that point. I was able to get these organized, and up here in this left corner, I have the Rex matriarchs that'll all be there. Over here, I have the Elite Dungeons, and if they do add the other 6 bosses of Elite Dungeons, which I think they might, I can fit it all in that little area. This T-shape here is going to be the hyper old content, so think of like Giant Mole, KBD, KQ, things like that. KBD and KQ are going to go here because they don't have their own mount. I think you just literally throw them up. They're old content. I don't think they use a wall mount. Maybe they do, who knows. And then the rest of the bosses were all kind of just a hodgepodge of random stuff, so I just did like older solo and group content that isn't hyper old, so you can think of it as like hyper old. These are kind of just standard old, and then these bosses are like the relatively new ones. Now in my Discord I did post this, but I'll go ahead and bring it up here, and this is just like what boss goes where and all of the different sections. And this is just the way I have it, so once I get a trophy, I know exactly where it goes. And then what I posted in my Discord is this list right here, and what it is all of the current boss trophies we have at time of recording. They haven't added in the few that need to be added in, but of all the ones we have right now, I have put them in order from like which ones require the huge pedestal, which one requires the large, the small, and then the 2 size wall mounts. And then the old mounting system, I have those 2 bosses there. So feel free to screenshot this if you want, or you can join my Discord, and I literally just have this text document just sitting in the main chat in case you need it for your own design. And this room here in the center, I'll probably just throw any of the extra added in bosses I can't find another spot for, or new content if I can't find a way to theme it into something, or if I come up with better organization later on. I also have my statue of Damoric here, or Damorok. Wait, is this literally just a pun that I have never recognized before of Damorok, like the more rock I add, the bigger he grow? Is it literally just that simple? Is it just that dumb? Or is my brain just getting fried because I've been recording for over an hour? Well, I think I will wrap the video up with this tip, and you can see it here from the second floor, and that is I have not put a window in every single wall, and in fact a lot of them don't have it. Tastefully placing windows can really make or break your house, especially on the light fancy stone or light cobble, whatever the heck this exterior design is called. It really can make or break because the rooms already have small windows with them, so if you're adding in even bigger windows, it can almost become gaudy to a point and really just make it look like you bedazzled your house with windows rather than tastefully did a nice design. And that's all I really have to say about that for now.